All right, so this is going to be kind of split just a little bit. Mr. Greving did not know that he had to pay for this, so he had to quick pay for it before it decided to delete all my things. So I'm sorry for the abrupt end of the last video, but we're going to kind of continue. So we were talking to like Becca and Medina and the area around it. So the area around it is going to be extremely desert-like. The only thing that really separates a lot of the desert is going to be various small oases, right? Areas of water, lush areas, I guess you could say, enough water to actually support people. Otherwise, what did it actually look like in between a lot of these areas? So the area is going to be mostly made up of a group known as the Bedouins, right? The Bedouins are going to be a group of semi-nomadic peoples, mostly um, traders by practice. They're going to be the ones that are going to move between a lot of the cities in Saudi Arabia and bring goods and trade to a lot of these areas. So, one of the things that's going to be kind of a part of the history of Islam is the fact that these Bedouin people, the peoples of Arabia, are going to be kind of a trading people, and they're going to continue with that over time. Their ancestors, even before Islam, as you read in Splinters of Paradise, actually were the ones that were trading with India and bringing goods to like the Roman Empire and the Greeks and so on and so forth. And so the trading nature of these people is going to be kind of ingrained in their particular group. They're also going to be pastoral in a lot of ways. In Saudi Arabia, when there's really not enough water to irrigate and thus create agriculture, they're going to be pastoral peoples, kind of following various small pastures of animals for survival. And they're also going to kind of tune their particular culture to the area that they live in. So they're not really riding horses in Saudi Arabia. This is going to be a group of people that is going to use an animal that has recently been domesticated, known as the camel. And the camel is going to be an animal that can actually make these trips in what is a really, really harsh environment. And the harsh environment in and of itself does create an interesting problem for the Arabians, at least early on. It means that you can't really have a lot of large groups. There's not a lot of unity amongst all of these various Arabians. The only thing that they really have is like a group of oral histories. So they would pass down stories, belief systems, myths, and other things in kind of an oral manner. But what's more important about that is that it's all spoken word poetry. So, a lot of the histories and the understandings of who the Bedouins are going to be directly ingrained in the Islamic belief. This belief that everything that is spoken, everything that is written can be beautiful. So, to the Bedouins and then the later Muslims, the written word and the spoken word, poetry, all of these other kinds of things are extremely, extremely beautiful. If you're to look at the Quran, the book of the Muslims, it is poetry. It's written in a way that it can be spoken to people, in a way that is actually seen as being as beautiful as the God or Allah that they are describing. Now, they're not to that point yet, though. They do not worship one singular God. They're going to be polytheistic. So they had a god of, for instance, like the moon. They had a god of the oasis, a god of the sun, just kind of like a lot of the basic polytheistic beliefs that we have talked about. But they had a lot of exposure to monotheism. So Muhammad's jump to a monotheistic god isn't that surprising. It's not like it came out of nowhere. The Bedouins were frequently trading with a lot of Jews and Christians that were living in and amongst Saudi Arabia, or at least nearby. Even groups like the Aksum, the people of Aksum, had a small invasion roughly right before the birth of Muhammad that would have put them at least on the outskirts of many of the areas of Saudi Arabia. So definitely, they had access to monotheism and a lot of the ideas associated with the Jews and the Christians. And we're going to see that a lot when Islam is created. Now, we talked a little bit about clans. So, what did these clan ties actually end up looking like? So, Basically, family is going to be the way that people in Saudi Arabia end up surviving. This is a harsh environment. You need to ration resources. You need to have people who have your back because it's not always going to be a comfy lifestyle. And so uncles, brothers, families, all of these are going to kind of come together to form even larger groups, all right, groups of families. And these groups of families are going to war with each other quite often. They're always constantly attacking each other, or somebody did this, and this man spilled my beer, and all these other things. And it wasn't like the warfare that we would understand today. It's not like they just met and killed everyone. It was actually a lot more exciting than that. So what they would do is they would pick a champion of the family. The other group would pick their champion. And then they would have an all-out brawl between the two strongest members of their clan. And so they would fight, they would do battle, one would be killed. That's the winner of the war of this particular group. But this was happening nearly constantly. Like, it could have been something like a clan member insulted your mother or something like that. And then that would have led to a small war. So this is going to be relatively bloody. It's not going to be something that you would say is going to affect everyone, but it is a very aggressive culture. The Bedouin culture and the Arabians are aggressive, right? And that kind of shows at least a little bit in the Quran, in Islam, in a lot of ways. It doesn't mean that necessarily that's the intent, but Islam is trying to get away from that. All right, this aggressive culture, this hatred, all of these other things. But you can see it leak into how they write their book, some of their practices later on as we kind of go on. So here's an image that I found just so you can kind of see what Bedouin life was actually like. This is a modern day picture, obviously, not from the time period, but they really have a lot of the same practices today. Now, there's not as many of them, but you can see the camels in the back, kind of the basic tent shelters. These are going to be people who are going to move and move and move and make most of their money as merchants or traders. In fact, Muhammad is going to himself be a merchant and a trader as well. We can kind of see that right there. So we talked a little bit about Mecca and Medina. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this slide just because it's more just to kind of set some context here. So Mecca is a city in Arabia that is the trading hub. Everyone comes to Mecca to sell their wares or at least pass them along to the next trader. It's probably the largest city in Arabia right now. And so thus it has an importance not just as a trading hub, but it's also going to have an importance of a religious center as well. This is going to be the location of the Kaaba. The Kaaba is something that's really important to Islam. Maybe you want to underline it or just kind of circle it right there. Right? So the Kaaba is going to be a box, basically. Right? It's going to be a large black box in the very, very center of a temple that is created to honor the gods. And so there are 360 different gods worshipped by the people of Arabia at this particular point. At the very, very center of them is a meteorite. Or at least a piece of a meteorite sent from the heavens, and then the people of Arabia have kind of interpreted this as something that has been sent from the gods. This is also going to be the location, or the Kaaba's location of Allah. Allah is one of the main gods of Islam. So the Kaaba was in the center. This was Allah's throne or area of worship. And then there were 360 different idols that surrounded the Kaaba. Now, there was kind of a corrupt nature to this. The Kaaba, and thus the rest of all of these idols, were a way to make money. And so you can kind of see below that, you see the Umayyads. Right? The Umayyads are going to be a group that you're going to want to know. You could probably skip knowing the Quraysh, I would say, but the Umayyad clan and then the Quraysh tribe underneath them rule Mecca with an iron fist. And one of the things that they do as a part of their rulership is you have to actually pay money to go and worship. You have to give up of your financial earnings to even be a part of religious ceremonies and other things like that. That's really corrupt. And the Umayyad clan, off of what is really a corrupt practice, is becoming extremely rich. They're making a lot of money. So Mecca is going to be the first city that really is important. The other one we're just going to kind of briefly go over is Medina. Medina is an oasis in the desert, not far away from the Umayyad area of Mecca. And this is going to be also a city of trade. It's going to be smaller, but one of the most important things to mention is that there is a split between Bedouin and Jewish tribes. And so that's going to come up a little bit later. But now for Muhammad. So Muhammad is going to be roughly born about 570 CE. The date of like 631 generally is going to be kind of his death day. All right, that's going to be really when Islam begins to spread far and wide. So Muhammad is a member of this Quraysh tribe, the ones that rule Mecca. Unfortunately, Muhammad experiences some death in the early parts of his life. So as he experiences these deaths, first of all, his mother dies in childbirth. So he never really knows his mother, and thus is kind of missing out on that particular part of his life. And then not much longer, we're talking within like the first 5 to 6 years of his life, his father takes on a disease and then dies. So he is left with no one. But because the clan system is relatively strong in this particular area, he actually finds some shelter or a family with his uncle. Now, his uncle is going to kind of raise him, right, in the profession that his uncle had already taken on, which was a caravan manager. And so a caravan manager basically, sometimes you went along with the caravans, sometimes you made sure they were loaded. It was just basically kind of someone like a middleman who made sure that all of these various goods made it to the correct cities. So really, by all accounts, Muhammad is going to be a merchant. He's going to be somebody who's going to make a lot of money, right? So he's going to be someone who is going to be wealthy in a lot of ways. One of the things that's always really interesting about Muhammad is he does fall in love. So roughly about the age of about, like in his 20s or his 30s, Muhammad falls in love with a beautiful, beautiful woman. Actually, the woman, the rich woman who is sponsoring a lot of his caravans, named Khadijah. Khadijah and Muhammad fall in love. Unfortunately for, I guess, modern day understandings, Khadijah is double Muhammad's age. So roughly kind of in like probably at least her 40s or 50s, which makes for some kind of like weird relationships kind of there. But hey, it's history. Everything's strange all the time. Now, on a particular journey into the desert, Muhammad is following a caravan. And Muhammad had been having a lot of these thoughts lately, but he's going around Mecca and he's seeing just what is a lot of corruption. The Umayyad clan has kind of been dominating people and taking money from people. It's all just really bad, just very corrupt. So Muhammad is out on a journey. He's going with a caravan, moving amongst all of these various cities, and he has to stop in between two of the cities and takes a night's rest. Now, he takes this nice rest in a cave. He falls asleep, and all of a sudden there's a bright light shining all of a sudden from the entrance of the cave. He's completely blinded. He doesn't know what's going on. And so now Muhammad is looking upon this figure walking out of the light. The figure that is in front of him is the angel Gabriel. The angel Gabriel, yes, that is the same one that is mentioned in Christianity. Islam takes a lot of the ideas from Christianity and kind of adds to them, I guess you could say. So this is the same angel Gabriel as mentioned in the Bible, or supposedly according to Islam. So the angel Gabriel arrives and says, Muhammad, you are to be the Allah's last prophet, and you will speak to the people his last edicts and rules. Now, I don't know about you. I'm just non-committive, all right? This wouldn't be something that I would really want to do. That seems like a lot of responsibility and very, very time-consuming. So Obviously, Muhammad really doesn't want to do this. Who does, right? He's going to have to kind of go against the grain in a lot of ways. Nobody's going to believe him. And basically, he says, no, I am not going to take this. That is not my job. Find somebody else. So, in one of the more entertaining aspects of the story of Muhammad, this is at the particular point where the angel Gabriel forces him to take the words of God or Allah, and so he wrestles with Muhammad. Like, I imagine he's just kind of physically, like, just throwing some bows, throwing him on the ground, these kinds of things. And basically, in the process, the words of Allah become a part of Muhammad. And he's filled with all of this knowledge that he's then expected to share with the rest of the people of, well, the world. That was kind of the idea behind this original first story. So Muhammad is obviously upset. All right, this is not something that's very positive for him. He runs home and he speaks to his wife, Khadijah, and he's telling her all of these things that the angel Gabriel has said to him and all these ideas and what Allah really wants for people and all these other things. And he's not fully convinced, though Khadijah is really trying very hard to get him to actually be a prophet, right? Go and speak the words to all of the people. What's really interesting about that is that it means that overall, Khadijah is an important figure. Khadijah is a female, right? She's going to be someone who's important to Muhammad, and women are important to Muhammad in a lot of ways. But you got to put it in context a little bit. This is a time when there's a lot of polygamous marriages and other things like that. So how do you kind of mix this? Is Muhammad supportive of women, or is he not supportive of women? I would make the argument that he is. I would say that generally, as for the time, he was progressive. His views of women as equal to men in the eyes of Allah and other things are going to be things that aren't present in a lot of other faiths at this particular time. Now, over time, that's going to change in Islam. That's historical, not Muhammad. So over time, historically, there's going to be just a shift in what the status of women is going to be in Islam, but we're just not quite there yet. So Muhammad goes to sleep that night, and he experiences a vision, basically a dream, where Muhammad is taken from his house and then thrust all the way over to Jerusalem. And then from Jerusalem, he shoots up into the heavens and speaks with Allah himself. And Allah convinces Muhammad to act as his prophet. Of course, that's the story anyways. Now, what's really kind of an issue here is that Muhammad immediately goes to Mecca and starts preaching and telling people about all of these various things that he's seen, what Allah wants, that he's the one true God, and he doesn't like all of these polytheistic gods and all of this other stuff. And people hate him for it because, one, he's a guy who's, kind of just speaking about this new religion that he's just come up with. And there are very few people that are actually in support of that. Slowly but surely, he's kind of adding some followers. But the people who really dislike it the most are the Umayyads. The Umayyads and the Quraysh tribe are making a lot of money off all of the idols near and around the Kaaba. So thus, if someone comes in and says that those should be destroyed, that there's only one true God, basically, that's going to hurt their finances a little bit. So, because he's undermining the traditional gods, it's going to be a time for, to end the person who's threatening their money. Muhammad is a direct threat to all of their revenue. So they organize a plot. They hire all of the leaders of the Umayyad clan, 5 different assassins. And these 5 assassins were going to sneak on Muhammad in the night and then all stab him at the exact same moment. That way, no one leader could take sole blame for the execution of Muhammad. But Muhammad learns of this, and he escapes to Medina. He leaves. It's called the Hijra. It's a very important moment in Islamic history. This is when Islamic history actually begins. This is year 0. The Hijra, or when Muhammad flees from these assassins, is going to be a key moment. And he's going to leave for Medina because Medina would like for him to arrive and help them with the situation. Hey, if you know this Allah, then maybe you can help us out with a problem in Medina. Now, a couple images. I could have probably been doing this all along, but this is the image of the angel Gabriel speaking to Muhammad, telling him that he should be doing the things that Allah has spoken to him. Here's another image. One of the things is like, why is he on fire? That makes things really exciting. Well, that's to represent holiness in a lot of ways. So I think it was this one as well. You can see the fire around him. That's supposed to represent the holiness of Muhammad and Allah. Now, you can see it here too. This is going to be when Muhammad is pulled by angels and brought to Jerusalem and then up into heaven, and where he speaks to Allah. And Muhammad is going to be like doing a lot of teaching. He's going to try to get people to follow him. And then he's going to move from Mecca to Medina, but he's being followed by the assassins. They're right on his heels, moving towards him, following very close. You can practically see him on the horizon. Muhammad knows that he's going to be caught by these guys and executed. So he decides that he's going to hide. And where he hides is in a cave. The assassins know that he's hiding there, and so they start moving amongst all of these small caves on this ridge looking for him. But they come across a cave that is now covered with a spider web, and it has birds in front of it that were not startled or scared. So they assume that nobody was there. Surely if a person was to go into this cave, he would have broken the spider web and scared away the birds. But this was the cave that Muhammad was in. And so they pass it over. It's seen as being a miracle of Allah in a lot of ways, because Allah has done something for the people. He's actually allowed for Muhammad to live. And he's the one that allowed for the spiders to spin so quickly and for these birds to land in front of the cave so that he can escape what would have been his execution. Very rough. Now, he does finally make it to Medina. So when he gets to Medina, he is going to be converting up a storm. Now, he's going to be really, really popular in Medina. So there's the Jews, and then there's going to be the Bedouins, and he actually comes up with a peace deal that allows for them both to live in the city together. In the process, he's also going to get a lot of the people to follow him. And so more and more and more people are following Muhammad until he has thousands of people that are following him. And he just kind of settles and builds a mosque. And it's really going to be the first area where Islam becomes an actual faith. He's also going to basically kind of go beyond a lot of these class divisions. All of these various clans and other groups had been previously divided. Well, what Muhammad was teaching was beneficial not only because it was an ethical system, a good way for people to practice a lot of good ethical lives, it also was a sense of community that went beyond clans, which means it's political. And so all of these various groups that had previously been ununited, separate in a lot of ways, now have this woven piece that connects all of the people in the city. And that connection is Islam. Islam is a super clan. A super clan, which means that you're going to be able to field a pretty sizable military from this. You're going to be able to create a state from this. And so the one thing that's going to be state building in Arabia and a lot of the Middle East is going to be Islam. And that's going to be very, very important, because when the Umayyads realize that Muhammad is gaining a lot of followers in Medina, they send an army. This army is going to take part in a battle with Muhammad. This battle is known as the Battle of Badr, and Muhammad is outnumbered 5-1. And so Muhammad faces against these mercenaries hired by the Umayyads, and they win. And that is seen as another miracle of Allah, the victory over the Umayyads, or just victory in general. One of the things that's really important to note about the Battle of Badr is that Allah is backing Muslims when they're winning battles. So I want you to really, really think about this. What happens when Muhammad stops winning battles? Or when the Muslims stop winning battles? What's going to form out of that? Are people going to complain? Does Allah no longer believe in us? Is it because we're not following Allah correctly? There's lots of different things that can come from that. But when the Muslims keep winning, Islam is good to them. When the Muslims start losing battles or losing empires or having social problems or all these other things, that means that they're doing things incorrectly. That's going to be a big problem later on. That's going to be a problem today. Now, Muhammad does eventually raise an army and invades Mecca. One of the things he's known for is he doesn't slaughter. He doesn't kill anyone. But he brings a lot of freedom to the elderly and the poor and all of these other things. So here's the army that's being brought by him. Once again, Muhammad, holy Muhammad with fire there. And when he arrives, the one thing that he's going to do, he's not going to hurt anybody, but he is going to destroy all of the idols in the city. He's going to free the people, according to the Muslims anyways, of their polytheistic religion. And the area that was housing the Kaaba is now granted the title of being the holiest place in Islam. A place that people need to always visit to truly connect back to the time of the beginning of Islam. And now we are seeing Muhammad triumphant. A new era for Islam.